My parents helped my brother buy a house and told me to rent somewhere. Saul used my savings to buy my first property, then kept buying more. When he asked about my house, I said, which one? My parents always said they didn't have favorites. Then they handed my brother Leo a check for $150,000. I was sitting at the same dinner table when it happened. They were celebrating his big step into adulthood. Leo was 27, still living in their basement, and had just landed a mid-level marketing job. I was 25, working 80-hour weeks in data, analytics, and living in a studio. Apartment that smelled like damp carpet and ambition. We want Leo to have stability, my dad said, sliding the check across the table. The market is tough. This covers his down payment and closing costs for that suburban colonial he liked. I looked at the check and at my mom. And what about the inheritance split we talked about last year? Or the help you promised me when I graduated? My mom didn't even look up from her salad. You've always been the responsible one, Elias. You have a good head for numbers. You'll figure it out. Besides, Leo needs the help more. You can just rent somewhere for a few more years. It's not a big deal. Rent somewhere. Those two words became the fuel for a very cold, very quiet fire. I didn't argue. I didn't scream. I just nodded, finished my water, and left. I went back to my studio and pulled up my spreadsheets. I had $45,000 saved from 2 years of aggressive penny pinching. It wasn't a house in the suburbs, but it was a start. While Leo was busy hosting housewarming parties and buying a riding lawnmower he couldn't afford to maintain, I was moving. Not into a house, but into a beat-up duplex in a developing neighborhood. I lived in the bottom unit while renovating the top unit myself on weekends. I learned how to lay tile, how to fix a heat trap, and how to ignore the sound of my brother's voice on the phone, bragging about his new granite countertops. 2 years later, I refinanced that duplex. The neighborhood had spiked. I used the equity to buy a 4-unit apartment building. I didn't tell my parents. When I saw them for Christmas, I wore the same old hoodie. I drove my beat-up Honda. I let them lecture me about how I should save more so I could eventually stop renting. Leo's house has already appreciated by 10%. My dad bragged, sipping his scotch. Real estate is the only way to build wealth, son. You'll get there one day if you work as hard as your brother. I just smiled and asked for more mashed potatoes. By age 29, I owned 12 doors. I had mastered the art of the Brewer method. Buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. I was exhausted, but I was a millionaire on paper. My renting days were long gone. I was the one collecting the checks. Then the economy shifted. Interest rates hiked. Leo's adjustable rate mortgage, which he'd taken out because he wanted more house, and the $150K could buy, started bleeding him dry. He'd also taken out a HELOC to buy a boat. The golden boy was drowning. Last month, my parents called an emergency family meeting. They looked older, stressed. Elias, my mom started, her voice trembling. Leo is in trouble. The bank is threatening foreclosure. We've already spent our retirement savings trying to help him catch up, but it's not enough. Leo sat there, head in his hands, looking like a broken child. We were thinking, my dad added, since you're still just renting that little place and don't have any real assets or a family to support, maybe you could take out a personal loan or use your savings to help your brother clear the debt. It's for the family, Elias. I leaned back in the chair. I felt a strange sense of peace. I can't do that, I said quietly. Why not? Leo snapped, finally looking up. You've always been the rich one in the family. You're so selfish. You're just sitting on cash while I'm losing my home. I'm not sitting on cash, Leo. I'm sitting on equity. My father frowned. What are you talking about? You rent a studio. I haven't lived in that studio for 4 years. Dad, I own the building that studio is in, along with 3 others in the city. The silence in the room was deafening. My mother's jaw literally dropped. You bought a house? She whispered. I looked her dead in the eye. Which one? I asked. The duplex on 4th, the complex on Miller, or the brownstone I just closed on downtown? Leo's face went from pale to a deep ugly red. You've had money this whole time, and you let us struggle? You didn't struggle, I reminded him. You were given a $150,000 head start. I was told to rent somewhere, so I did. I rented to people like you. Only I made sure my tenants could actually afford the lifestyle they were living. My father stood up. Elias, this is frightful. Your brother is going to be homeless. You have the means to stop it. As your father, I'm asking you. As a businessman, I interrupted. I'm telling you the answer is no. But I'll tell you what. I'm looking for a new property manager for my latest acquisition. It pays $22 an hour. Leo, if you can pass a background check and promise not to spend the petty cash on boat fuel, the job is yours. Leo lunged across the table, but my dad held him back. I stood up, adjusted my jacket, and headed for the door. Wait, my mom cried out. Where are you going? We're family. I paused at the doorway and looked back at the people who thought I wasn't worth the investment. I have a closing at 3 o'clock, I said. And unlike Leo, I never miss a payment. I walked out to my car, not a Honda, but the blacked out Porsche I'd kept parked around the corner. I didn't feel angry anymore. The fire was out. All that was left was the cold, hard reality of the empire I built while they weren't looking. They told me to rent.